to Live and Local. My name is Gary Sanders, and I'm very happy to have with me tonight Larry Baker, author of the acclaimed novel Flamingo Rising, which was recently seen on the Hallmark Hall of Fame movie presentation. Larry, welcome to the show.
Gary, thank you very much. I'm glad you told me that this was sort of the preview for the Oprah show. And
it's going to be. It's going to be a preview for the Oprah show. Well, let's get right to it, Larry. We got a lot of people in this town who are writers, who are readers, and I think that a question that comes to mind to most everyone, whether they've read the book or not read the book, and hopefully they have read the book, is how did this all come about? I mean, here you are in your early 50s, and you've been writing for a while, and you were on the city council, and the next thing you know, you got a huge commercially successful novel, which turns into a Hallmark Hall of Fame movie. Can you tell us a little bit the genesis of the whole thing?
Well, you know, as my charmingly attractive wife tells me, Larry, it could have happened to a nicer guy, but it happened to you, so we're going to have to deal with that. I make no pretense to being a great writer. I'm a very lucky writer. I know a lot of people who write as well, if not better than me, who don't have the luck that I had. So to get picked up by a major publisher and to have it turned into a movie, I sometimes give a speech called Dumb Luck and Perseverance, which seems to explain my career. Write, keep writing, and sometimes the breaks go your way, which is what happened to me. Now, that's a simplistic description of what happened. I mean, I wrote the book, started it 15 years ago, and put it down for a while because I couldn't get it to work. I was telling the story from the point of view of the father instead of anybody else. And then when I changed the point of view to the son, 10 months later, 400 pages, I had a book. Mm-hmm. Just a simple shift in point of view. Now, writing the book was actually the easiest part of it because publishing took another 2.5 years. Mm-hmm. I went through one agent, 18 months, 10 rejections, a lot of revisions, and then I sort of cut my ties with that agent because I wasn't getting anywhere. And then I went to work full-time, which thrilled my wife. And once I started working in a bookstore here in Iowa City, I decided to try one more time. I had an agent's name and an address. I sent him a letter. He asked for 50 pages, then the whole book. And then he called me and told me he had sold it. And from first inquiry to phone call was about 3 to 4 weeks.
Really? After all those years?
After all those years. And he just made one phone call. He just called the president of Knopf, and they liked the book.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think I realize you're being a little self-deprecating when you said lucky, because obviously, for anybody who's read the book, it's a good read, and you worked hard at it. And I think that's something that, people should understand about books and writing, that it's more than just, you sit down, you plug away a little bit,
yeah,
and all that.
Now, when people ask me, how do you get published? Well, the first thing I tell them is you write, and then you rewrite and you revise. You try to find an agent. You talk to people who have done it before. You just sort of jump into this void and hope that somebody catches you before you hit the bottom. Mm-hmm. And it's a long process. And like I say, I was astonished by how things accelerated after the book was accepted for publication. Mm-hmm. Even if that time was another year before it hit the shelf. Mm-hmm. So I appreciate you saying nice things about it. I know you read the book.
And I want to say this, that we're going to also talk about the movie version, and we're going to be taking calls from people after quarter after the hour.
They made a movie out of my book? Where's my agent?
Well, that's an interesting thing. First of all, before we get to that, very briefly, you said you started writing from the point of view of the father, and then you switched to the son. Mm-hmm. For those who haven't read it, what would you like to say about what the storyline or the basic theme of it is? And then we can talk about the movie and how that got switched around.
For the couple of dozen people in Iowa City who have not read the book yet, and I'm sure will be down at Prairie Lights or some other store tomorrow to buy it, it's about the world's largest drive-in movie theater and the people, the family that lives inside the screen tower. And it's told from the point of view of a man in his 40s looking back at his childhood when he lived with his sister with these very weird parents. Well, I don't think they're that weird because,
this is Iowa City. They're not weird.
They're not weird, and it's also, they're very familiar to me. The father's a southern combination of P.T. Barnum and Captain Ahab, and he's the manager owner of the drive-in. The mother's a devout Catholic Southern belle, and they live across the street from a funeral home run by a man named Turner West and his family, which lives inside the funeral home. And of course, the narrator, as a child, falls in love with the daughter.
That's enough. Let's not tell any more of the story. Didn't you have some of this kind of resonate with your own life? Isn't that the genesis for part of this?
I stole shamelessly from every weird thing I ever did. But I keep telling people, that's not the story. Those are just a series of events.
Right.
There's a scene where they find a dead woman sitting on the toilet in the bathroom, in the drive-in bathroom. I did that when I was 25 years old, and I did it. I was running the biggest drive-in in Oklahoma at the time. Mm-hmm. And it was a Friday night, and I was afraid I was going to have to shut down for business because it was obscure law in Oklahoma that, unexplained death on a commercial property, 24-hour investigation. So I figured out that her car is her property. So if she's dead in her car, it's not my problem. So I waited a while, and then I picked her up and put her back behind the wheel of the car. Now that becomes a part of this story, but that's just a scene. All the characters are made up.
Right, right.
But the events, the selling the sex education books car door to car door, the lighting funeral homes on fire with your fireworks display, and showing a movie called The Birth of Triplets. And
Okay. Now, you wrote this over a period of 15 years.
Yes.
And you said you had 10 rejections.
Yes.
Was there ever a point in time where you absolutely thought this was never, ever going to be published?
Oh, sure. That when I got rid of that first agent, it literally went on the shelf. And I went to work, and I just listed a stab, just one more name. And I was astonished when this last effort came through. Now, the interesting thing about the new publisher, the new agent, as soon as the editor bought it for Knopf, and we went through the revision process, he slowly peeled away all the revisions I made to that book in the 18-month process of getting rejected. Every time I get a rejection, my other agent would say, well, we need to change this. So I'd make a little change. And finally, the book became this weird sort of a conglomeration of styles and narrators. And the new editor, the only editor, cut through all that and got back to the original manuscript. And then I thought it was a brilliant job of editing.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think would have happened if this last agent, would you have just really put it away forever and gone on with your life, do you think, or not?
I would have taken my re-election campaiign more seriously back a few years ago.
And you still would have been teaching at Kirkwood and working at Walden Books.
Sure. Well, is Walden still?
No. Okay. Now, and then, so the book comes out, and it's a pretty fair commercial success, and you had some nice reviews, some not so nice, but...
Well, those people were idiots.
Predominantly, they were positive.
Predominantly positive.
And it had some commercial success. Yeah. And then what happened in terms of how the whole movie thing happened?
I went and prostituted myself in Hollywood.
I thought I saw you on the cover of the Hollywood Star.
The Hollywood Star.
Yeah.
No, it's an interesting history because the book was optioned very early after it was published.
Why don't you tell me what that means?
That means they'll quote you a price, but you only get like 10% of that price, and they have it for a certain period of time, 18 months in this case. The producer.
The producer.
The agent sells it to a producer who has a certain time, and they pay 10% up front. And if they don't get it produced or started producing in 18 months, they lose their 10%, and I can resell the thing, which is what happened. 18 months came, the producer who had it...
You want to use any names or not names?
Well, sure. I like her. I mean, her name is Ellen Crash. She's a good producer. She was working on the HBO movie A Lesson Before Dying, which went on to become an Emmy winner for her. But she was involved in that project and couldn't turn around Flamingo in the same period of time. And so the option expired, and the day the option expired, my agent called and said that Hallmark had been waiting for a long time to buy the book.
So it was sort of known in Hollywood.
Sure.
Your agent was shopping it around, so people knew about it.
Yeah, I mean, shopped it around, and the first producer picked it up fairly quickly. And then it's in limbo for that period of time. And then the great thing about Hollywood is it's the art of name dropping. I mean, I've had conversations with this producer and other people out there, and in 2 minutes they could drop 20 names. Mm-hmm. Bobby Zemeckis is doing this, and Jodie Foster's doing that, and I got Kevin Kline's going to do this for you, and Andy McDowell. It's like, oh, wow. And it's all like, they just drop names like crazy. Hallmark, the president of Hallmark had read the book, liked the book, and Hallmark was, in the year 2001, doing their 50th year of television production. and they specifically wanted Flamingo for their golden anniversary lead-off movie, and he waited to get it.
And well, were you satisfied with the production, or?
Is this a live program? You know, how many writers are ever satisfied with the movie version of their book?
Well, for those who only saw, see, this is important because I'm sure we've got people watching who only saw the movie.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, they're in for a big surprise when they pick up the book.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are three things going on with Hallmark. One, it's a television movie, which changes the whole structure and pace and everything. It's commercial television, which, again, changes the structure. And it's Hallmark, which certainly changes the structure and the content. Hallmark doesn't do a lot of the things that I do in the book, and they're very clear about that when they talk to me.
Right. But how about the overarching? Having read the book and seen the movie, it seemed like they changed something in the overarching context of it.
Well, they shifted the emphasis away from I think the parent-child relationship to the adult relationships more.
Mm.
I mean, they hired William Hurt. He's a good actor, A-list actor, and how's that Hollywood jargon there? A-list. 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 Me, I'm a C-list writer and an A-list writer. All right. And Hurt had to expand his role as the funeral director, and he changed the character of the funeral director. I mean, this is not somebody that I wrote, but I like Hurt. They really were interested in that love triangle conflict between the two parents, and the one parent, the father, the funeral, the drive-in theater owner being a little bit wacky and driving the funeral guy crazy with his movies and stuff. But there's this tension between them about the wife.
Right.
And I thought that was good. I mean, Elizabeth McGovern was wonderful.
As the wife.
As the wife and mother.
And the director, the movie director was...
Martha Coolidge, movie director.
No, the father in the movie.
The father in the movie, Brian Ben, I thought he was excellent.
Yeah.
Like I say, William Hurt created a new character, but that's all right.
Yeah.
But the big thing that Hallmark did was they kept the kids at the age of 12, whereas in the book they go all the way to 16, which leaves out a lot of adolescence. And it changes the role of two other characters, the Alice and Polly character, who were basically wasted in the movie.
Right. Were you, I mean, a lot of people are really excited by the whole thing about Hollywood movies and were you more excited, frustrated? What were some of your emotions as this whole movie developed?
Oh, a lot of cliches that come from being a writer involved in movie production. One is there is a point where you have to psychologically cut this cord and say, it is their project. It's got nothing to do with you or the book that you wrote. And if they just capture the basic story, you ought to be happy because it's a completely different art form. It took me a long time to get to that point. I mean, for the first 6 months, I was very distressed about this because I had no input into the production.
And that was you signed off. Did you sign off on that, or did something else happen?
I was led to believe that Hallmark was not interested in my input, and I found it by my former agent.
Former agent.
Yeah.
Okay.
Who got the script writing job for another one of his clients.
Who was?
Richard Russo, who's an extraordinarily good writer, and I'm sure that Russo had no idea that of my interest in the project, a personal interest in working on the project.
So you did want to write the script?
Oh, I had a rough draft of a script all set to go, and was told that Hallmark would never let an author do his own script, and then I found out later that was not true.
So your agent basically lied to you.
That's a strong...
We can say that. I'll say it. And you nod your head.
I think that you probably need to get him on the program and get his version.
Let's just say that.
I would say that I think...
You and he had two different understandings.
We were on different planets,
yeah.
And our communication was not very well, but I think I knew what I was talking about.
So you had something in mind for a screenplay, and they did something else in Hollywood.
Yeah, but again, they have 92 minutes of airtime.
Right.
I mean, a parallel is the audio book. The audio book.
I listened to that too, by the way.
You did?
I'm not just saying that. When driving to Michigan 2 summers ago.
Oh, you listened to that, but okay, all right. It took you a while to get to the book.
Okay.
Get to work it up there. The audio book script was 180 pages, and that's literally from the book. They didn't change anything. They just cut out a lot.
Right.
And they sent me that script, and they said, well, if you want something else in, you have to take something in this 180 pages out. It's an abridged 3-hour version of the book. And it's a different creation. I mean, you missed the dog, for example, and a lot of other things. The dog, by the way, who's buried in Iowa City. So, yeah, it's a very different product, and I had very specific suggestions for what they could have done to make that a better movie, but since I wasn't involved in the process, this is real easy, sort of Monday morning quarterbacking hindsight.
Were you
it's unfair, but
were you
it's
ever tempted to say no to Hallmark and whatever deal they were offering, and wait for something like 20, Warner Brothers or?
Oh, sure. When the Hallmark offer was made, it was financially a very generous offer. I mean, I had no complaints with the money. I was very concerned about it just being on television in general. And I hesitated and drove my agent a little bit crazy. He kept thinking I wanted more money, and I kept saying, it's not the money. It's not the money. It's the whole the medium that it's in.
Because you, after all, you ran a movie theater.
Yeah, I mean, I visualized this, and it was the point of the book is the size of this man's ego as manifested in this theater screen. It's the world's biggest theater. And somehow that theme changes when you reduce it to 21 inches on television and throw in some greeting card commercials.
But, if this might be a little bit of an unfair question, if you had to do it again, what would you do differently about the deal with Hallmark?
If I were
waited for a big movie company to do it, or would you have tried to do something else with Hallmark?
I'd had 18 months of another theatrical producer to put it together for a theater release, and it didn't happen. So there's a certain point where, enthusiasm for any project will dwindle in Hollywood. So at the time, the Hallmark money deal was very good. I didn't feel like I could say no to them. It's sort of like you have this here and you have nothing over here except possibilities.
Bird in the hand.
Did you just make that up?
I did.
You got birds in your hands.
I make up aphorisms all the time. Now, was it fun for you to be, I know you went down there to meet with the crew and the...
Went to the set a couple of times in Florida. They filmed in St. Augustine where the story actually takes place. And my family and I got to go to Los Angeles for the actual theater premiere. They showed it on the big screen one time, and that's where I saw it for the first time. And a lot of the stars were there, and Hollywood people, and my son was finally, I said this in the paper, my son was finally impressed because he saw one of the stars of Star Trek. And then he thought I was really cool.
Was that more fun than like when you had the hardcover?
Than Surgery, yes.
When you had your hardcover edition published and you got to meet with Sonny Mehta and his house
the
in New York.
book experience.
And that's the editor at Knopf.
Sonny Mehta, yeah. Now that whole experience was much more profoundly moving, and that was more of a dream come true.
When you were with the editor of Knopf in his penthouse in New York, and being wined
drinking daiquiris and
being wined and dined.
Yeah, right.
That was a more profound experience.
The profound experience was the whole process of getting accepted, going to New York, meeting not just the editor but the whole staff, the upper staff of Knopf, and working with the promotion people, the publicity people, the audio people, just getting to know those people was my dream for years and years and years. The movie deals are always just sort of like frosting, and sometimes they're irrelevant, but no, I really hope that I get to do it again in some other context with another book in the future sometime. But it's for someone who grew up wanting to be a writer, and then lived in Iowa City for 20 years and went to every reading at the auditoriums and down at Prairie Lights, or most of them, and to sit there and think one of these days that's what I want to do, and then for that to happen, that's an experience that as a writer I cannot put into words, and that's what I really, really enjoyed.
Now, I assume you're working on something in the future.
I'm working on my portfolio of this much now. Yeah. No, I'm always writing. This first book allowed me enough leisure and space to write full time. I don't have to work at another job.
You were teaching at Kirkwood.
Teaching at Kirkwood, on the council, and doing some other things to make some money here and there. All legal, by the way. So now I write, and you know, I tour a lot because it's an odd thing about this book. It never became a bestseller. Mm-hmm. It sold very well, and in certain parts of the country, it sold extremely well. But it's hard to describe the book to somebody to get them into it. Mm-hmm. But once people read it, they really, really, I'm sounding like my own publicist here, but they really, really like it and are affected by it. Mm-hmm. It's something that I think that the movie did not capture.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know you enjoy going around and doing these readings because I went out to the Solon Library with you a couple weeks ago for a enthusiastic crowd of about 60 people.
Now, I appreciate you asking those questions that I asked you to ask.
And so that must be, just a little added.
Oh, Gary, you know me for 2 decades.
Yes.
Back when I had hair darker than yours, and I'm a natural ham, and I like standing up. I used to.
Well, how is it that you're still doing these readings? Is the book still out there on the market, or, did the movie get an extra boost?
The book is always sold steadily. The movie gave a little boost. But what happens is the publisher no longer sends me out and does things for me because they got new writers to deal with. So I've been able to arrange a tour schedule on my own through libraries and schools, bookstores. I just got back from Texas and Oklahoma where I did SMU, Baylor, 4 bookstores, and 5 libraries, all in the space of about 10 days, about 14 or 15 speaking engagements, 2 major speeches at colleges. And the colleges paid for the trip that allowed me to arrange all the other stops that I made, including my old high school.
Really? Now, how was that? I haven't even asked you that.
Oh, I should have brought the posters. There was a big poster waiting for me of my publicity picture and then my pictures from high school, which is real scary. And you went to high
school where?
I went to high school in Richland Hills, Fort Worth, Texas.
Okay.
A long time ago in a time and place that we don't remember.
Long ago. Well, that's interesting that the publisher is no longer, interested. Or?
No, they have a cycle of writers, and they have a staff that works with what's new, and then they'll get those people out, and a lot of people fall off the cliff and never are heard from again. And I've just managed, as my wife says, to make a career out of one book.
Well, why not?
It may be the only one. Who knows?
Why not?
But it's a book that people like to have me come and talk to them about.
Did the movie spur a little extra interest?
Oh, sure. Yeah. It's not going to make me a millionaire, but it's a comfortable cushion. And
you're not going to do a Robert James Waller on us and leave Iowa and move to Texas and dump your wife and all that.
There's such a straight line. Gary, I grew up in Texas. Ain't no reason for me to go back to Texas permanently. And I've already got my trophy wife. So, I don't need all those things.
Your wife of 20-some years.
20-some years, and my gorgeous children, and who I'm sure watching this and taking notes right now.
Okay. The movie, is that still available? Let's say somebody missed it.
There was a movie in my book?
It's a TV movie. Now,
of course, it's
deprecating when I say movie. Are you that sort of not fond of it? That
no, I'm not. I'm not fond of it. Okay. I thought it could have been a better movie, much less an adaptation. It was a better adaptation than it was a movie. I mean, this is from the point of view of someone who studied film for 30 years and used to show movies for 15 of those years. There are a lot of things that movie could have done to make itself better. Having a different, they should have an adult narrator, for example, instead of the child narrator.
Right. Though I did love your one comment in the paper that said at least they kept the same name.
The title.
The title.
Yeah. And they changed the characters' names.
Yes. Which was pretty goofy.
Yeah, it was pretty goofy.
But that's available also if anybody wants to see that on video.
Yes, it's Hallmark stores are selling it. So, and Hallmark, and let me make it clear, I make fun of the movie a lot, but Hallmark has been very good to me. They were very nice to me on the set. They've been very good people. It's a different creation, and for those that haven't read the book, you need to read the book before you look at the movie.
No, I like the way you said that. It's a different creation.
Yeah, it is.
And that, I think that sums it up completely. That within the constraints of the 92 minutes, as you said, with the commercials.
Yeah.
And, you know.
And think about the luxury that I have that 99.99999% of other writers don't have. How many people get a book published, and then how many people get a book published and a movie made of it? That's why I go back to the very beginning of this conversation. I'm incredibly lucky.
Yeah, and I also like what you said, that there are people with better books out there that are never going to get them published.
Yeah.
And that's all part of what people are struggling with, especially in a town like Iowa City, where there's a lot of people working on books.
Mm-hmm. How come the phone's not ringing?
I don't know that, but that's okay if we didn't get any calls.
Are we talking into a void? Is there like nobody out there? I told my kids to call here.
My Nielsen ratings have been very high, so possibly there's something wrong with the phone.
That's just a holdover from the 60s
or something.
You're Nielsen.
But it's interesting that. Do you think it's better that this success came to you, for example, at midlife than when you first? Well, you're middle-aged, Bubba, so am I. So when don't pretend you're having a heart attack.
I'm doing my David Letterman routine right here.
Do a CPR thing on you right here, and I know you hate it even more. Okay, so what I want to know, do you think?
I like you a lot, Gary, but not that much.
This is.
Oh yes, seriously.
Yeah.
It was lucky I was 50 when the book came out, because I was I've been known to be a jerk for the first 3 decades of my life. So you don't want to give that kind of person success.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What you say? You're working on something now. Do you want to say anything about?
No,
okay,
I don't
we'll
know.
Just skip that.
Yeah.
Okay. Are there other things that you would like to say here? We got about a couple minutes left. To any young writers or people, even middle-aged writers who are still struggling along. Any tips?
Oh, I can give you every bit of cliched advice from one writer to another writer or struggling writers.
I think people would like to hear that. I don't think they're so trained. We got actually 1 minute. I just see the cue card.
Got 1 minute to give you the wisdom of life.
The entire thing in a nutshell. Go for 1 minute.
All right, here. First of all, be a good writer. Read a lot of books. Lead an interesting life, and then write about it, and then keep writing about it. Expect rejection, and then keep writing. And did I say keep writing? That's it.
And I think find an agent who likes the book and knows how to sell it. Because that, to me, from my knowing you, seems to me an incredibly important key.
What was the difference?
You found an agent who loved the book and who went to a publisher. I mean, the fact that Sonny Maida, the head of Knopf, loved your book, right? I mean, that's incredibly important in this whole story.
Sure.
That you had an agent and a publisher who loved the book.
And the agent who has the right connections. And also, unless they really like the book, they're not going to take it.
They're not going to bother.
There's lots of books out there.
That people aren't going to be...
Maybe this this might be a good book.
All right. Bubba, Larry Baker, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you, Oprah.
Flamingo Rising, thanks for being with us on Live and Local. Good night.